A major aviation opportunity with expected turbulence.
We need to make sure that we have the right balance.
As a new facility breaks ground, the challenge will be finding enough staff. Recounting the rockfall.
I felt the rocks, the boulders, like coming right past me, and one just missed my shoulder.
How survivors came together then and are remembering those killed now. And the small pests doing big damage to lawns.
This is perfect environment for chinch bugs to really start to get very active and start to do damage.
Why some Calgary communities are affected more than others.
CTV Calgary, local breaking news with Alicia Fieldberg.
Good evening. A new state-of-the-art engine maintenance facility is going up near Calgary Airport. It's the latest addition to Alberta's growing aviation industry, but it could have one major hurdle to clear before it can open. Tim Brooke explains.
A major $120 million investment in Alberta's aviation industry has officially broken ground. Lufthansa Technique celebrated the launch of its new engine maintenance facility at the Calgary International Airport Wednesday.
We're establishing a new benchmark in engine maintenance.
Come 2027, engines for WestJet's Boeing 737 fleet will be serviced here, and the build will also be home to Canada's first engine test cell, yet another addition to a growing sector.
This facility will enhance our domestic capabilities. It will reduce reliance on international maintenance operations.
But at home, there is a problem brewing. The country is facing a serious shortage of aviation workers thanks to retirement, COVID, and the cost of training. One group estimates we're currently short 7,300 pilots and 5,300 engineers.
There will be less planes flying, and we don't want that. That impacts so much of our economic development. So we really can't let that happen.
But there is reason for hope. New partnerships with the Alberta Aviation and Aerospace Council, governments, and post-secondary institutions have instilled some confidence.
We need to make sure that we have the right balance, having the right immigration policy and goals, and at the same time make sure that we have the capacity to afford important immigration across the country.
And Lufthansa Technique says a recent recruitment effort has already filled 30 of a possible 160 roles at its new facility.
We had really good talks already with Minister Jolie, together also with the federal governments, but also with the provincial governments, who just underlined the importance of the aerospace sector and what we're doing here.
Tim Brooke, CTV News, Calgary.
Alberta's rail plan is rolling ahead, but it comes with lofty ambitions and major questions. The province is exploring how to bring back regional rail service to Calgary, something that left our city decades ago. Jordan Canagan reports.
Via Rail trains last rolled through Calgary in 1990. The service was cut in order to save money, and regional rail in the area hasn't returned since.
And a lot of the lessons learned still stand today. Via Rail is very subsidized by the federal government as it is today.
And Cooper says any future regional rail service in Alberta needs major government involvement. The shuttered Via station still stands next to the Calgary Tower, chained up and covered in graffiti. But the Alberta government is now studying passenger train services once again.
This is quite significant, actually. And then when you look at how funding plays out with these big infrastructure projects across Canada, it's usually provincial governments and federal governments working together as the main funders of these overall projects.
Public sessions this week show considerations for passenger trains to go from Calgary out to Edmonton, Banff, Lethbridge, and more. And they are strongly considering high-speed trains as well.
That's pretty exciting to see. You know, I think a lot of people kind of get a bit pessimistic on high-speed trains, but I think Alberta's reached the point where we have the population, we have the commuters, we have the amount of people.
But specific routes and possible costs are still unknown, as is whether Via Rail would be a partner through Calgary again.
We certainly have had, discussions with Via about what their future expansion plans are, and they're very interested in our study and how we may be able to work together or connect.
And with Alberta's fast-growing population population, the province needs to plan ahead.
You can only build roads so big. You can only get so many vehicles. You can only park so many cars in certain spots. So we need other ways to move people between these cities. And, the most efficient way to do it is through passenger trains.
Jordan Cadigan, CTV News, Calgary.
Alberta's virtual sessions continue tonight and tomorrow. Costs and timelines could come out by the fall. The sudden closure of an Alberta surrogacy agency has devastated hopeful parents who are now out a lot of money. As Stephanie Thomas explains, rules about surrogacy in Canada add more challenges for couples.
Kim and Martin Apple say they have been trying for 12 years to have a baby. They signed up with Alberta-based JA Surrogacy Agency Canada and spent about $20,000 in hopes a surrogate would carry their biological child. But on Friday, they received an email that JA would be closing and all the employees terminated.
Makes us feel stuck because we kind of lost not only a financial aspect, but we've lost a little bit of hope and a little bit of our dreams that could have came true.
A couple from Ireland told CTV they spent $19,000 with JA Surrogacy to help find a surrogate and cover her expenses. Now they have to start the process all over.
Now we're just completely devastated about the whole thing, and then we're really trying to focus on the future instead of the past, but it's very hard.
JA Surrogacy was founded by Jennifer Allen. She died in 2023. Her husband, Phil Allen, inherited the company, but tells CTV News in a statement it now has more than $150,000 in debt. His goal now is to trace all funds and provide clear answers to every intended parent, surrogate, and service provider affected. He's even gone to the RCMP. Nobody has been charged. The company's now former CEO tells CTV in a statement Allen closed the business without notice or severance, and the company lacked the funds to address debts or offer refunds. One fertility lawyer says it's likely these clients are left without recourse to get their money back.
The key thing is to make sure that the money that's in trust, which is there for the benefit of the surrogate and managing her expenses through the process, that is protected.
Surrogates cannot be paid in Canada under law, but things like hotel stays and transportation can be covered. Agencies are not regulated, and surrogates cannot be compelled to carry a pregnancy as it's not a service or commodity. Fertility advocates say the agency's closure highlights the pitfalls of surrogacy arrangements in Canada.
Even regulation, in my opinion, is not going to save that. Companies go bankrupt, and it is tragic and it is awful when it is so hard for this already incredibly vulnerable community to have to experience that.
Stephanie Thomas, CTV News, Calgary.
Police have arrested and charged 2 men with defrauding a Calgary nonprofit association out of tens of thousands of dollars. Police say in 2022, 2 men approached the directors of Bowness Ratepayers Scout and Guide Hall, promising to rebrand it as a community event center. Investigators believe between 2022 and 2024, the 2 men embezzled more than $66,000 by hosting events using organization funds and not paying fees. Police say they also created false receipts for services never rendered and used fake email addresses to put money into their personal bank accounts. The president of the Bowness Hall Association says they've been working closely with police and are happy charges have been laid.
So over $66,000 of embezzlement, but in a small community association that's that's struggling to keep a community hall going, supporting the community, this can be a really big fraud. It can have a huge financial impact and potentially devastating impact for them.
Calgary men 41-year-old Nathan Michael Mazzara and 40-year-old Joshua Tyler Bretto have been each charged with 1 count of fraud over $5,000. They're scheduled to appear in court on August 6th. The men released their own statement denying the allegations. In 2017, Bretto was convicted of manslaughter in BC and finished his sentence in 2018. Nearly a week after a devastating rockslide in Banff National Park, hikers are sharing harrowing stories of survival and moments of extraordinary compassion. 2 people were killed, 3 badly injured, and more than a dozen people narrowly escaped. Mark Villani has the story.
The photos from Bow Glacier Falls are breathtaking, and for Cindy MacArthur, June 19th was a picture-perfect day.
We were just all having lunch and kind of gazing at the waterfalls.
She was part of a group from the Slow and Steady Hikers when suddenly a thunderous crack split the air.
And it was just huge. There were pieces like Legos starting to fall.
MacArthur dove to the side of the trail, narrowly escaping a boulder the size of a truck.
Oh my God, I had like a second. I was just like, God save us, please save us.
When the dust cleared, several hikers ran back to help the wounded. MacArthur says total strangers came together to care for the injured, including Uta Heinrichs. The 70-year-old nature lover and former instructor at the University of Alberta was killed in the slide.
And I said, hang in there, we're going to be here. And I just held her hand.
33-year-old Hamza Benalal was also tragically killed. His best friend Khaled El Gamel survived, thanks in part to the team of hikers who refused to leave his side.
I said, you're not closing your eyes. And I just made sure I was keeping him completely focused.
But despite their own injuries and fear, the group sprang into action, offering water, calling for help, and staying with the injured until rescue crews arrived.
We all take care of each other. When you spend 6 to 8 hours together on a trail, I often tell people you can't help but be your most authentic self.
Slow and steady group organizers say it's a testament to how prepared hikers have to be, using GPS satellite beacons and making sure they always have the proper equipment.
We share water, we share snacks, we share blankets, we share layers. That's what hikers do. It's a community and a family, and they all came together last Thursday in a beautiful way.
Parks Canada says the rockfall was a natural, unpredictable event. The trail to Bow Glacier Falls remains closed indefinitely. But in the face of tragedy, what endured was the instinct to help others.
Everybody's a team.
Mark Villani, CTV News, Calgary.
There is a GoFundMe to support Benalal's family and a July 3rd hike scheduled in memory of Heinrichs. For more information, you can visit our website. Heritage Park will be closed the next 2 days because a TV show is filming there. Sets are already going up in the park, covered in red, white, and blue bunting and American flags. For the TV show Billy the Kid. Now, this is the 3rd season of the romantic adventure based on the life of the famous American outlaw. The entire village will be closed to the public during filming on Thursday and Friday. Gasoline Alley and the shops and restaurants outside the gates will be open. The historical village will reopen on Saturday. Gina, we had some wild but short-lived weather this evening, and we can expect kind of that pattern for the next few days.
Yeah, it really swept through. Right around 4 o'clock there, we did see a classic cell storm move in, packing a punch, but it was brief. And tomorrow it could be a similar situation. We've reached a high of 22 degrees today. We'll drop down to 12 overnight, and it'll clear and calm down out there. But we picked right back up to that high of 22 tomorrow afternoon, Alicia. Lots of sunshine in the morning, but expect those rain clouds to start working their way back over Calgary as early as 11 a.m.
Thanks, Gina. Summer holidays are starting for school kids, but talks of a teacher's strike haven't ended. The uncertainty is concerning, but some say so is the status quo.
You're watching CTV News, Calgary.
While Alberta students focus on summer break, teachers and parents still have some things to worry about. Teachers voted in favor of strike action earlier this month. Some say the pay is so poor they're walking away from the job altogether. Tyler Barrow reports.
School is almost out and the summer awaits students and teachers. For Calgary Board of Education EA Hannah Basaraba, she's excited to come back in September as a full-time teacher.
I'll be able to set up my own classroom, and I'll get to be in a building and learn from experienced teachers.
Much remains in the air for her and her colleagues. The Alberta Teachers Association and the province are still working to hammer out a new collective agreement. In early June, the ATA turned down the latest deal brought forward as over 94% of its members voted in favor of a strike. Working conditions, a main issue. And here's an example of how things have changed. In the 2012-13 academic year, classroom sizes ranged from 19 to 26 students across all grades, according to the ATA. Now,
colleagues of mine who are teaching classes in the 30s and the 40s.
ATA members also weren't happy with the proposed wage increase of 3% a year. Basaraba is set to enter the Calgary Board of Education salary grid with 6 years of university experience. In 2012-13, a teacher at that level earned nearly $65,000 a year. But when adjusted for inflation, that wage would now be valued at over $87,000, according to the Bank of Canada. But under the deal that was just rejected, that salary was pegged at $73,000.
Teachers have received essentially a 6% raise over the last 12 years. That has been a loss of purchasing power to inflation.
The proposal also included grid harmonization, which could result in an up to 5% wage increase and $400 million in classroom improvements. In response, Finance and President of Treasury Board Nate Horner said the ATA was offered a fair deal made in good faith, and I am disappointed that the ATA members did not accept the mediator's recommendation for a 4-year agreement. The ATA says its members are leaving the profession, and Alex Santangelo is an example. She was a full-time grade 3 teacher from December 2022 to June 2023. She ended up going back to her former job.
I make more money bartending. I can't afford to teach, and the emotional toll that it took on me, the mental toll, the amount of work.
Tyler Barrow, CTV News, Calgary.
The last provincial budget included one of the largest increases ever for K-12 education, bringing the total spending to just over $10 billion. The province has announced $2.8 million to help local entrepreneurs. It will fund 5 more years of the Trade Accelerator program under Calgary Economic Development. The program helps small to medium-sized businesses grow and reach international markets. This new money will help up to 650 companies. Many face economic uncertainty due to tariffs.
We believe in a strong, tariff-free relationship with our neighbors to the south. They're our largest trading partner as a province, and that's why we're working with them, continually working with state and federal legislators in the United States. The Premier herself has met with President Trump to continue to make the case for Alberta. But here back at home, we're going to continue to work with our provincial partners as well to remove trade barriers.
A new report by Deloitte Canada predicts a modest recession during the second and third quarters of the year, with the potential to rebound as businesses get more clarity on trade issues and new policies. Enbridge says a lot needs to happen before it would propose a new pipeline to the West Coast. Premier Danielle Smith expressed confidence that private sector pipeline operators will come forward with a plan to ship crude from Alberta to Prince Rupert for export to Asian markets. Today in a statement, Enbridge said it will explore projects provided there is demand, and it would take real provincial and federal legislative changes around climate policy, regulatory timelines, and Indigenous participation. The Calgary-based company is Canada's largest shipper of crude oil. Leaders of Alberta's Indigenous communities will meet with the Premier tomorrow in Calgary. Danielle Smith and chiefs from Treaty 8 First Nations will meet at McDougall Centre tomorrow morning. The chiefs say they will be discussing emergency management resource revenue sharing, and treaty and jurisdiction. In May, 2 chiefs wrote letters opposing proposed legislation about a separation referendum, prompting the province to alter its wording. Well, in the next few days, there could be more storms like the one that we saw this evening. Gina's forecast has the details up next.
Wanted to start the forecast off by taking a look back at that classic supercell that passed through the city earlier today. Packed a punch, but it was short-lived, as these cells are typically. But really, we saw a lot of active weather throughout the province and even into the central part of the prairies earlier today. So there was tons of watches and warnings in effect, lots of lightning up in the sky too, and we could see another round of active weather as we get into Thursday. Even Friday and Saturday have the potential as well, but it appears probably today was the most severe weather out of this stretch that we could encounter. Now, today's highs were right where we should be. Seasonal at 22 for Calgary today, 23 in Edmonton, and obviously more east you go, they're still contending with a lot of hot weather in Toronto that saw a high of 30, and then Halifax too at 30, plus the humidity very, very hot to the east. But back here for tomorrow, a very similar setup. Like I mentioned, kind of a rinse and repeat situation. So once again, a high of 22 on tap for Calgary on Thursday, 25 in Lethbridge, 27 over in Medicine Hat. So that does set the stage again. That heat and the sunny morning does allow for the potential for instability later in the afternoon. But Again, it's probably not going to be as severe as that cell that we saw sweep through the city today, but rainfall for the next 24 hours shows overnight pretty calm out there, maybe that trace shower here or there, but it does pick up by the noon hour tomorrow and holds on in that widely scattered category throughout the duration of the afternoon, and then it looks like it subsides by the evening here. So a couple of days of this, seasonal temperatures for Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday. By the time we get into Sunday, which you're not seeing on the regional forecast yet, we'll see a ridge of high pressure move in. That's going to bring more of the sunshine, more of those summer-like conditions. So a couple of days of this instability, really right through till Saturday, and then by the end of the weekend, we're going to wrap up June with some nice above seasonal temperatures and a lot of sunshine.
Thanks, Gina. This time of year, bears are often spotted in Kananaskis country, but this one sees the opportunity to take advantage of a high-profile event. Recent rain might help green up your lawn, unless, of course, you're afflicted with a tiny pest that eats your grass and destroys your yard. Kevin Fleming explains.
The telltale sign is a yard with dead grass surrounded by green lawns. Nathan Tobias has to get low to find a chinch bug, but it doesn't take long.
Now, this is perfect environment for chinch bugs to really start to get very active and start to do damage because they love hot and dry. They do not like cold and wet.
James Soika owns yard dogs and says last year's water restrictions combined with hot weather made for a perfect environment for the bugs.
They will, over time, start to suck the juices from their blades of grass, inject a toxin, and it will cause damages up to the point where someone has to completely resod a lawn. They will completely destroy a lawn if they can go unchecked and untreated.
Tamara Schutzley wants to prevent that from happening to her lawn. She makes sure the grass isn't cut too short and has plenty of water.
The problem is yes, like my lawn looks green now, but if everybody doesn't take care of and do their part, like it's just going to keep coming back. So it needs to be like a community thing where we do it together.
Jackie Lebenzon is an assistant professor at the University of Calgary who studies insects. She says bug activity is determined by the temperature.
When it's hot, they're going to be moving fast and they're going to be out and active and foraging and finding food. And so because of the heat, I think that was really the kicker last year. So if we have a cooler August, it might be a little less extreme.
She knows that many Calgarians don't like spiders, wasps, or ants, but says insects make up 3/4 of all animals that live on land and pollinate 75% of all the food we eat.
The insects that are around that sting or bite or cause any harm are the ones that give people pause about, getting full into entomology. But I think if you let them be and just kind of give, the insect space and not be so scared or dead set on eradicating them, I think people can, start to see the beauty.
Kevin Fleming, CTV News, Calgary.
Well, there were no real hairy moments during the G7 summit in Kananaskis, with the exception of this one. Despite efforts to keep bears away, a grizzly dropped in for a visit at the Kananaskis golf course. The area was closed to visitors, but good luck keeping this big fellow away. Parks Canada says there are about 60 grizzlies living in K Country. Thanks for staying up late with us.